Shana Tova. In a letter to his grandson, one of our presidents writes, "In the fevered state of our country, no good can ever result from any attempt to set one of these fiery zealots to rights, either in fact or principle. They are determined as to the facts they will believe and the opinions on which they will act. Get by them, therefore, as you would by an angry bull. It is not for a person of sense to dispute the road with such." The words of President Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson's rival, John Adams, defending British soldiers at trial for the Boston Massacre, commented, "Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passions, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence." Now, it would not be unfair to accuse me, as the spiritual leader of this congregation, of some level of inconsistency when it comes to such matters of fact. As a religious leader, I often focus on matters rather of truth with a capital T. Most of you, I think, have heard me distinguish what is merely true or factual from the more amorphous but grander concept of truth. The religious sensibility of truth, or perhaps more correctly, truths, speaks to matters that are not necessarily establishable by fact, but rather matters of meaning and morality. Truths such as God created humanity in the divine image, thereby establishing innate, essential, and equal worth to each and every individual. For we Jews, this is a great truth, regardless of its factuality. Often in my comments in the classroom or from the pulpit, I place this notion of truth above mere fact. The Exodus from Egypt remains our compelling and defining narrative in spite of its very uncertain veracity. And as Reformed Jews, we maintain that while the 7 days of creation and the parting of the Red Sea for Moses may lack factuality, they contain deeper and compelling truths, capital T. In accepting this idea of capital T truths, we are affirming the power and the deep and abiding value of metaphor. But tonight, I am compelled to remind us that in affirming this idea of truths, we are not and should not be denying the reality or importance of the other kind of truth, the one with the small t, that insists on what is actually true: factuality, credibility, accuracy, expertise. In accepting the value of metaphor, we do not deny fact or science or evidence. And yes, there are occasions when we knowingly place truth above fact in our choices. But again, not because we are denying the credibility of those facts. Cold, hard facts remain just that. As John Adams called them, they are stubborn things. Truths may inspire our choices, our morality, even our careers. But facts are what make up our day-to-day lives. The the building blocks that allow us to share with scores, thousands, billions of other individuals. Truths can guide our vision, our aspirations, but facts enable us to share the ground and reality with those others around us who may not share our truths. Truth, that capital T, truth, as folk wisdom has it, is in the eye of the beholder, but facts are another matter. The dictionary distinguishes truth from fact with this exemplar. In truth, he looks younger, but in fact, he is 60 years old. I went to the website, that's what was there. Personal observation, however significant, in truth, he looks younger, is not a substitute for fact. He is, in fact, 60 years old. And factuality is no more dispensable than breathing, and it is equally essential. And yet, it seems we have entered into an era when the that was E-R-A, not E-R-R-O-R, although we could talk about that. We have entered an era when the inconvenience of some facts is responded to with fictions and falsehoods that some have turned alternative facts. Truth isn't truth, we are told. And that may be, however poorly stated, that may be correct at least in matters of religious belief, philosophy, matters of personal taste. In those cases, truth with a capital T is truly, indeed, in the eye of the beholder. But those today who opine that truth isn't truth aren't referring to the big T truths. They are claiming that the small t truth, what is true, what is factual, is actually unknowable. That facts are in the eye of the beholder. Yes, says our former mayor, nowadays they are. Essentially, they are claiming that facts aren't facts and are declaring war on factuality. In a society that refuses to distinguish fact from fiction, truth from falsehood, honest statements from outright lies, individual honesty will begin to evaporate and personal integrity will become maligned. A society that permits or is indifferent to demonstrably false claims is on a fast and slippery slope to its end. Isaiah, the prophet, envisioned just such a fraudulent society some 2,600 years ago, prophesying, and so redress is turned back and vindication stays afar, because honesty stumbles in the public square and uprightness is refused entry. Honesty becomes lacking, and the one who rejects evil is despoiled. Perhaps to this very vision, Jeremiah added a verse, "They have taught their tongues to speak lies," as if the tongue is doing it on its own, "and they weary themselves as they commit iniquity." It is no longer hyperbole to argue that we have entered such an age as described by the prophets, an era when falsehood is being peddled as fact and actual truth, facts, actual truth is challenged as construct and conspiracy. We live in a time when an entire industry has arisen to peddle falsehoods and fictions. Those in the fact-denying business are not simply offering differing opinions or alternative facts. They are, in fact, substituting lies and falsehoods with the intention of confusing and confounding others. The Alex Joneses of this world wrap themselves in our First Amendment, claiming they are merely practicing free speech. They assert fact as fiction and fiction as fact. They cry censorship when their lies and fabrications are called out and corrected. And their claim that their lies, their falsehoods, their assertions of fiction are merely protected opinion is in itself duplicitous, a means of skirting liability and culpability for intentional lies and defamation. What becomes of our society when we refuse to challenge and refute such falsehoods, knowingly false claims about experience and expertise, about academic achievement, military service, medical conditions, persons' actions, positive or negative, under oath or not? False claims about the effectiveness of a product, the safety of a food, a product, or a treatment. Both our American and Jewish notions of public weal and social contract reject a purely caveat emptor approach to the public marketplace, not only for products, but also for facts and information. Facts still matter. The earth is round. It rotates around the sun. The Holocaust is a fact. That some Poles participated in the extermination of their Jewish neighbors is a fact. Come and arrest me. The shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School is a fact. The gunning down of a fleeing and unarmed Walter Scott is a fact. The increase in average global temperature is a fact. That the 44th President of the United States was born in Honolulu, Hawaii, is a fact. Whatever our opinion or outlook, however we wish to see our world, facts remain facts. Theologies are personal, opinions relative, hypotheses debatable, but facts are facts. And we as Jews understand this perhaps better than anyone. In The Origins of Totalitarianism, Hannah Arendt wrote, "The ideal subject of totalitarian rule is not the convinced Nazi or the convinced communist, but people for whom the distinction between fact and fiction and the distinction between true and false no longer exist." Walter Langer offered a psychological analysis of Hitler's leadership, writing, "Hitler's genius was that if you repeat a lie frequently enough, sooner or later people will come to believe it." And in his classic 1984, George Orwell described such a society where the Ministry of Peace concerns itself with war, the Ministry of Truth with lies, the Ministry of Love with torture, and the Ministry of Plenty with starvation. These contradictions are not accidental, wrote Orwell, nor do they result from ordinary hypocrisy. They are deliberate exercises in doublethink. Affirming falsehoods and fictions denies individuals and society the facts, the knowledge that wisdom requires of us to deal with our lives and our world. Embracing falsehoods and confabulation is often a means of avoiding confrontation with those difficult facts that need to be addressed. The truth may not necessarily set us free, but without doubt, lies ensnare and enslave us. They require constant effort to maintain in a way that honest facts simply do not. In this regard, falsehood is corrupting. It is an approach to dealing with our world, with others, and ultimately with ourselves that is a betrayal of honesty and integrity. And no doubt, do not doubt, that this is exactly what is being peddled to us today, peddled by opportunists who recognize the difficulties of modernity, preying on people's fears and hopes. For we live in a day and an age where information is now the real currency of our civilization. But the information we need is also too often overwhelming, distributed, disparate, and conflicting. Society's confidence in a common ground of sensibly agreed upon facts has turned into a bog of assertions and contradictions. Fact-checking has become ubiquitous in the reporting of the news, and not for positive reasons. Repeated accusations of outright lying pepper our political debates. The opportunistic peddlers of alternate facts argue that the truth today is simply too detailed, too voluminous to be accurately determined. As access to information has increased and proliferated, some have become suspicious of facts that they haven't or cannot empirically confirm for themselves, suspicious of knowledge that conflicts with their own desires and worldview. And these same salespeople of falsehood pounce, counseling that we need not make the effort to ascertain facts, but need only assert what we feel and wish to be true, encouraging us to elevate emotional sensibility, our famous gut, over facts at odds with our sense of what should be true, what the comedian Stephen Colbert has termed truthiness, the truth we want to believe in. As Jefferson observed, such folk, quote, are determined as to the facts they will believe and the opinions on which they will act. But where Jefferson advised his grandson to get by them, therefore, as you would by an angry bull, it is not for a person of sense to dispute the road with such. Tonight, I would counsel on some occasions a different approach. Our daily morning liturgy instructs with these words, Le'olam yehei adam yirei shamayim b'seter u'v'galui u'modeh al ha'emet v'dover emet bilvavo. A person should always be in regard of heaven, both in private and in public. One should acknowledge aloud what is true, as well as speak honestly within oneself. That phrase, modeh al ha'emet, to acknowledge what is true, comes from Pirkei Avot 5:7, where we learn that there are 7 characteristics to a wise person. The last 2 characteristics are, quote, about that which one is uninformed, a wise person says, I am uninformed, and is prepared to acknowledge, to concede the truth. We don't know everything, and some of what we think we know is not true. It is this idea of modeh al ha'emet, of acknowledging, speaking aloud, and when we are wrong, of conceding the truth, that is central to our argumentative tradition. We value thoughtful debate in Jewish culture. We do not avoid it. Steel sharpens steel, says the Talmud. But argument and debate are not for their own sake, and we are called upon to recognize and acknowledge when we are uninformed, when we are underinformed, or when we are ill-informed. We may not invoke falsehoods to prove our point, and we must be prepared to literally concede, modeh al ha'emet, concede the truth, to acknowledge those stubborn facts, even when it necessitates admitting we were wrong, we were mistaken. Yet even when we are wrong on the facts, that alone is not enough. We must be willing to speak the truth, dover emet, aloud, not merely in our hearts. Truth spoken only in the privacy of our hearts, only in our minds, is not honesty. As the Talmud claims, the Holy One of Blessing hates when a person says one thing with her mouth and yet another in her heart. Now look, I'm not arguing that you should go home tonight and pick a fight at the dinner table. Chas v'sholom. But as Pirkei Avot teaches, Jewish tradition values truth alongside judgment and peace on three things the world is established: on judgment, on truth, and on peace. So there are moments and settings when shalom, peace, can override the value of emet, truth. But that permission is limited to interpersonal relationships. It does not apply to government or court or business, public interaction or education, or how we conduct our society. When you're asked, telling your partner, no, you don't look fat in that outfit, or that's a lovely hairstyle, is far different than lying to the authorities about who exactly was driving the car after you ran the red light, or failing to report income hidden in some account. Most small t truths, most facts require our honest iteration. We're supposed to speak about them out loud. Call to mind, if you would, that moment in the 2008 presidential campaign. I know it's hard. When a woman on a microphone at a rally for presidential hopeful Senator John McCain said, "I can't trust Obama. I've read about him, and he's an Arab." Her statement, go see the video, prompted Senator McCain to immediately shake his head no. Take the microphone from her. "No, ma'am," Senator McCain said. "He's a decent family man, a citizen, and I just happen to have disagreements with him on fundamental issues, and that's what this campaign is all about." I had the privilege during my 6 years in Arizona of meeting Senator McCain, speaking with him on occasion during my time there. Like most of us, Senator McCain was an imperfect person striving to do the right thing. He was not a perfect role model, but none of us are, and I consider myself blessed to have known him. At that rally, Senator McCain might have simply offered a non-committal, "Oh," but recognizing the truth, and at significant political cost and detriment to himself, he chose to acknowledge the truth aloud, "No, ma'am," and challenge and correct a falsehood. When we do that, we are speaking truth. We are practicing honesty, and we are demonstrating integrity. Teshuvah, turning, the theme of this season, involves recognizing when we have been mistaken, when we have been deluded, when we have chosen to be false. Teshuvah begins with honest self-assessment, but it is insufficient to only speak the truth in our hearts. When we fail to speak what is true aloud, we acquiesce to falsehood. We give permission to dishonesty. We abandon our own integrity. So let us look for inspiration at this season from those imperfect role models all around us and those who I've mentioned. From Jefferson, from whom we learn that there will always be those who will determine their facts based on their beliefs, and there's not a lot we can do about it. From Adams, we learn that facts are stubborn things, thank God, that demand honest and outspoken defense, even of those who society wishes to malign or persecute. And from Senator John McCain, Zichrono Livracha, we learn to speak aloud what is true, even at our own cost, if we truly wish to embody honesty and integrity. And finally, from our own Jewish tradition, Le'olam yehei adam yirei shamayim b'seiter u'v'galui, u'modeh al ha'emet v'dover emet bilvavo. A person should always be in regard of heaven, whether in private or in public. One should acknowledge aloud what is true, as well speak honestly to oneself. Ken yehi ratzon, may we, families, our community, our nation, choose to do so this year and every year. Good Yontif.